Welcome back to the Navvai Shift. Today we're joined by a very amazing man. His name is called Paul. He's the co-founder of My Times Pensions. And today we're going to be taking a deep dive into, artificial intelligence within Navvai Shift. So Paul, it's a pleasure to have you on. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Paul, I wanted to start by asking, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and, My Time Pensions and what's the
Yeah.
real mission that you have?
Yeah, I'm an apprentice boy in the pensions industry. So I kind of started at 18 and in defined benefit administration and went through the ranks, ended up in the last bit of my career, I was director of business development at Nest. We put about 6.5, 7 million people into that. And then I was doing a similar sort of role for a smart pension. And we put a couple of billion into that, whilst always looking at tech, always looking at innovation, always thinking about the problem, the solution, and where the market failure was. And I hit a certain big birthday. I'll let your listeners work out how big that was. And I took a year off and I went to study full time at university. And during that time, I came up with the business plan and idea for My Time Pension. It's actually two businesses. It's Retirement Technology, which produces the kit that sits on top of My Time Pension. And that was about 18 months ago.
I wanted to ask, what university did you go to?
I went to Cambridge.
Smart lad. Definitely a smart lad. But,
Yeah, I went there a lot later than you were supposed to go there. So let's not get too carried away. But
Cambridge now than it was back then. So I mean, well, I just have to say congratulations on that. So, Paul, tell me something. What's a typical day like as a co-founder? How do you balance, obviously, the work that you do day to day versus the vision that you have for My Time Pensions and Retire Well?
So that's a cracking question. So I'm going to say something really cheesy. There is no typical day. I would also say the way I am put together and built, I quite like that. So I do everything from the really boring stuff like finance and paying invoices to the interesting things like podcasts and conferences and everything in between. I would make the point though maybe 2 or 3 points. Firstly, enjoy it. So I specifically said in my head, enjoy this, even the boring stuff. Enjoy it. It's your baby. It's your creation. To do that. Number one. Number two, discipline and turning up is your superpower. Every day, an hour, 2 hours, 7 hours, 8, whatever it is. Be disciplined. And I'm in my garden office, or as the more juvenile friends I've got, the shed in the garden. And if I was to swing the camera around, you would see I've got a couple of whiteboards, I've got a big planner, I've got lots of little post-it notes on it. So I've got a good idea what my North Star is and what's going to happen when. And that helps me turn up every day. And my co-founder and I always have this little saying, we just need to be 5 centimeters further forward than we were yesterday. And if you keep doing that, the old compound effect of that just pays amazing dividends. It's only when you stop to look backwards, you suddenly go, crikey, we have done quite a lot. But yeah, being disciplined, enjoying it, and just making those little steps forward all the time is what I would call the typical day of a co-founder.
I wanted to ask, how did you and your co-founder, how did you guys link? Have you always known each other?
Crikey, what a question. So about 20 years ago, I was playing Sunday football on the Purley Way in Croydon, which if anybody knows, it's like a BTEC version of Hackney Marshes. It's not as glamorous.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Excellent. Elliot, my co-founder, was trying to get past me. He wasn't going to get past me. I clattered him, and we have been sat next to each other at Crystal Palace with season tickets for the last 5 or 6 years, and we'd known each other for the last 20 years in the industry. Whoever your question might be getting about co-founder, but my co-founder and I trust him. I know how he thinks. I also know what he brings to the party and what I bring to the party, and it's kind of 2 + 2 = 6. Yes, there are some overlaps, but there always will be. But he's really good at, let's say, regulation. I'm really good at product. In a regulated product environment, it's great you have both those bases covered.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. So, Paul, obviously, you've been at this for a fair while, to be said. What would you say are the biggest shift you are seeing in the pension industry right now?
Crikey, that's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming down the pipes from the regulator, looking at targeted support, which is a brand new regulatory regime. At the moment, we've got advice, not advice. Targeted support is the bit in between. We'll know more about that Q4 this year, maybe Q1 next year. I think that's a big thing. Government are putting scheme trustees and insurance companies under pressure to invest more in the UK. So there's hundreds of billions of pounds invested. The typical pension scheme is invested in less than 5% in the equity market of the UK. And the government would like to get that up to 10-15%, and looking at partnerships on how it can do. Those are the two big regulatory and legislation types of headwinds. But the one I'm focused on, which I see enormously, is every year over 350,000 people with 30 billion access their pension savings for the first time. It is not an exaggeration to say there's a wall of money coming onto the market, and they're looking for sensible products and some sensible solutions. And so what you're seeing now is people now thinking about that situation, but I would argue more importantly, thinking about what problem they're trying to solve.
I see. So on the topic of solutions in the pension industry, how do you think digital transformation and including AI is changing the retirement space?
It's everything. I know I'm preaching to the converted here, but you are as good as the kit that you build your product or idea on, and you just are. So when you're thinking about, I want this problem to be solved, how good your kit is going to make the difference between having a great idea and it going nowhere, and having a great idea and getting it into the market and making it effective. Now, so far in the last 18 months, 2 years, I would say AI has been the fifth person of our team, doing a lot of the heavy lifting, a lot of the basic stuff that we maybe previously would have to employ someone for. And I think we're just scratching the surface. So the cost of cutting code has come down by a third. Our lawyers' bills have come down because we don't need to do the basic stuff with them anymore. And I'm really thinking about the next 2, 3, 5 years. Where's it going to be? Jumping to solution mode or being a wishful thinker, you have to think what it's going to be like in 2, 3 years' time and where you're going to place your bets. And so I would probably characterize this, we're on the cusp of kind of a digital revolution 2.0. We've had the first bit, we can see what we can do. Now with AI, suddenly you're going to be able to bring all these ideas to market, and you have an embarrassment of riches of good tech to go and choose from to help you do it.
Yes, with all the tech that you've implemented within your business, with the artificial intelligence, you've saved a lot of time. And we've come across some people who have, not yet implemented within their own business, and it's somehow hard for them to see how AI can save time. Paul, from yourself, how much time do you reckon you've saved, within a week of implementing these AI tools?
At least a third. The way I would describe it is it does 80% of the job. So if I want a new website, I go into a bit of AI kit and I put in this is what I'm thinking about. I have a little play, and then I've got possibly the best brief I can then throw at a tech person and say, build that. And whereas previously they said, that's a 5-day job. Now it's a day, because I've done half a day using an AI tool, and that they're adding a bit of 10%. That's great, and a bit of good judgment and wisdom to it, but it makes a difference. I am gobsmacked that nobody's putting it in their business. But kind of nothing surprises me anymore. People are absolutely entitled not to use AI. You're absolutely entitled not to use AI, and you're absolutely entitled to use Duff Kit. The market makes up its decision as to whether it's not going to fund you, whether it's going to buy your products, or whether you're going to be late to it. Okay, I don't know any business plan where they say, do you know what? We're going to go for secondary kit. We're not going to use AI, and we're going to have this biggest, best proposition in the market, and it worked well. So, my challenge back to folk who are telling you that using AI, knock yourself out. I'll give it 12, 18 months, and your bills will be 5 times mine. You will not be able to run your business on that basis.
That's incredible. I know we did speak off camera, but you mentioned using AI for a sermon. What inspired that?
So yeah, I am probably the only person on this sort of podcast that actually does deliver a sermon, and I do that in the Church of England under the license as a bishop. But it takes the heavy lifting out. So a sermon generally would take me about a week to research and to think about and to mind map and create. Now it takes me a couple of hours, and I'll use AI to do the framework, and then I'll put it down, and then every day I'll do 15-20 minutes just kicking up to the Sunday. So I find it more pleasurable. I find it much easier, and I can engage much more with what I call the relatable bit. So I write sermons with one hand on the Bible, one hand on a newspaper, and I smash them together, and I try and interpret things like that. And AI makes it super easy, but I enjoy it more, and therefore it enables me to work on the nice bits, or the bits that make it relevant, but also then on my delivery. And you know, if you just put that into a work context, when you're thinking about drafting a shareholders update, or if you're thinking about drafting a memorandum of understanding, you kind of know what you want to do. But AI does it so quickly. You can put it down, you can share it. It's a very collaborative tool as well. And I've challenged all the people that work with me that, you know, they should be thinking at least a third time saved and cost saved in using AI. And I think that's light. I think the figure's probably 50%, if not 60.
Yeah, definitely. I think when it comes to AI, people tend to be quite conservative for how much time it can save, but really and truly, I mean, we use it. I mean, we are an AI growth consultancy company, and obviously, I think even the tools that we've seen coming out, it's just, and they come in, not even just the tools that are coming out, but they come out so rapidly as well. I think that just literally surprises every day. But Paul, I know you just kind of went over the usage of AI in terms of a sermon. Great story, by the way. So I just wanted to dive deeper in terms of AI used in your business. So
Yeah.
Where do you think it's like making the biggest dents?
Oh, that's a. So in financial services, a big element of whether or not I am going to work with you is trust. And to that extent, I need to know who my customers are. And the bit of kit that we work with to identify the customer uses a bit of AI to spot fakes. So the last thing I want is a newspaper article or a press article going across the wires saying, my time has been targeted by fraudsters, it's terrible. You will see people not use you, you'll see people leave you. So to be a safe proposition, we have to know the people that we're bringing in onto the platform, and that the kit we use uses AI to spot deep fakes. So the human eye cannot pick up some of these fake passports, some of these fake driver's license, but the AI can spot it. So it's a bit dry. Don't get me wrong, it is dry, but I think it's so important. And if it goes wrong, crikey, you're in a world of hurt. That's point number one. Point number two, though, if you think of our customer service and how we're delivering it, what we're noticing is more people want to kind of get it done, one and done. Yeah, I've got a problem, how do I fix it? And to that point, we are feeding and training up our customer service AI bot to take away some of those really simple, quick questions that people have, so they can get back online and do whatever it is it does. And the irony being is that when they do come through, and if they can't get it resolved, they pick up the phone, they are already 5 or 6 paces ahead of where they were, because the customer service AI bot has asked them the right questions and they've answered it, and for whatever reason have not been able to resolve it, but they are much further forward. You're not starting again from zero and tell me the story or anything like that. You can see what it's doing. So from a customer experience perspective, but from a safe place, those are just two of I think the big things that our customers will see when using AI.
Definitely. I think that's what some people forget, is that it's mutually beneficial, not just on the business side, but on the customer side as well. So even obviously, an example, not only has the customer improved their information by literally just entering, questions in the chatbot, at least when they pick up the call, they already have a significant amount of information, and that just makes the call time frame a lot shorter. But I did want to reverse the question to you, Paul. So what would you say has been tricky, and maybe has it been like kind of still maintaining the human touch using AI and digital transformations? I guess my question to you is, how do you keep it authentic?
We are a digital first proposition platform, so everything should work online. However, we're super conscious that when people come to buy products, they will want to talk to somebody. Some of our customers will be introduced by an IFA, a wealth manager, so they've got that person to talk to, and that's fine. But having tone and voice of a person at the other end is, I think, a key part of our service delivery. Now, I've really struggled to try and get the tone and the content specific enough for our customer set, insofar as we have deliberately recruited folk who are over the age of 50 to talk to other people who are over the age of 50 who are trying to take their pension savings, and we do it for all the right reasons, because there's a tonality and there's an empathy that you will have as a 50-year-old that you just won't have as a 20-year-old, which we want to capitalize on. If I've got an AI bot that can do that and give that reassurance, then I would use it tomorrow. But at the moment, we don't have that. So I wouldn't say necessarily tricky. I think it's more like, just acknowledging the AI does this stuff really, really, really well. But for this bit, it doesn't do it well. So let's not try and pretend. Let's put the thing in that does work well. But at the moment, I would say it's 2 + 2 = 6. We've got a service centre, the service experience on compared to others for peanuts.
Nice, Paul. I did want to ask, how do you get in front of your target audience?
It's a good question, actually. So I probably take a step back. I see our audience is kind of like a bell curve. So you've got your early adopters, you've got your early majority and your late majority. And at the moment, I'm using my little black book of personal contacts as well as my co-founders, and we're talking to folk who we would recognize as early adopters. Now, early adopters are folk with the customers, have got the problem, they're looking for a solution and aren't afraid of technology. That's not everyone, and that's fine. But we'll find the ones that are like that, and we'll work with them first, and through a period of time, we will then start thinking about moving into the early majority.
Appreciate the insight on that, Paul. I did want to ask as well, what metrics are you tying down on, the most? I feel like you've answered a little bit of this, but things like efficiency or customer trust. What's the toughest to measure?
The toughest to measure is feelings, and I'm a big believer in emotions buying. So you can work it out on a spreadsheet and do a side-by-side comparison, but brand and expectation plays a lot more to the emotional side, and a good brand will reduce your cost of acquisition and will reduce your cost of retention. It's also kind of easily lost as well if it does go. The big metric at the moment is numbers on the platform, assets on the platform, cost of acquisition, and then cost of service. Those are the 4 big key measures that we're looking for, and we're so early. We're just establishing a kind of baseline first. I mean, I've got a rough idea of what good looks like, and I know what I want to avoid. I know what my minimum is, and I know what my ideal is. But it's only after a few quarters of trading are you really going to be able to get any sort of meaningful traction on those metrics and say, all right, this is what we need to look at, and we need to fine tune this. That makes sense.
That makes sense. So, Paul, I did want to ask, so we've done our research into your industry, and we've seen that one of the biggest issues facing your industry is the advice gap. And people can't afford or access traditional financial advice. So from your perspective, how can technology in general change that?
So I'm going to be a little bit contentious here. It doesn't. And the reason I'm being contentious is because you've asked me about the advice gap. So at the moment, if you take a step back, you've got 2 regimes. You've got non-advised and you've got advised. That they are quite specific in their boundaries. Someone says, I recommend you do this, having taken into consideration everything. And over here, you've got me as an individual going on and buying a product. Okay. Now, one of them is do it yourself. Advice is do it for me. I think the future of financial services is that bit in between, which is do it with me. So if I'm atypical, I'm not stupid, I'm not a PhD, but I really don't need to go through 26 questions on a questionnaire to buy life cover or to buy an annuity. These are relatively straightforward products, but because I don't fit in the do it for me or do it yourself or do it for me categories, I'm forced into doing one of these, hence the advice gap. Now, I would argue until you've got 3 ways of trading, do it for me, do it with me, which is the missing bit, and do it for me, you can't really claim there's an advice gap. I understand where it comes from, but I would say understand the problem you're solving. Most people don't know the difference between targeted and advice anyway. They know roughly what they want to buy it, and they might need a little bit of help in selecting certain things on it. Therefore, I would argue the regulator has a role to play to promote these 3 things. But underneath it, you've got to have good tech, you've got to have good AI.
How does My Time and Pensions provide a tailored, affordable guidance in a way that works without, one-to-one advice?
Yeah. If I was going to recommend your listeners to do anything after this podcast, well, other than contact me, but it is to read the book Nudge. Nudge was but it's a behavioral science book. It was the backbone of Nest. Nest understood the problem it was solving. It came up with a solution. It used nudge theory. The way to think about it is I will present back to you some options. It is up to you to decide to select one of those options. And the phrase we use in our business is it's much easier to mark someone else's homework than for you to sit down and write the essay. So a big part of my time is we take complex, make it super simple, play back to you 4 options, you buy one, and then we do the governance around it. And I think you will cover, 80% of the market relatively cost effectively. I mean, a lot cheaper than and the outcome of that is I think you're going to get better outcomes from individuals buying better products that way.
I was going to say, Paul, you've got a dictionary full of analogies. It's really helpful to understand where you put things in perspective. So thank you. We appreciate that.
It's almost like I do sermons.
Paul, I did want to ask, you kind of highlighted it, a few moments ago, but where do you see My Time Pensions in the next 6 to 12 months? What's your dream outcome?
Wow, what a question. I want to be the go-to, to be the trusted brand in the market that people want to use, but it also, the ripples effect keeps everyone else honest in the market. So, let's we live in a market economy. It's relatively free. It might be regulated, but if you're the shining light, then you're going to attract people to you. And we don't need that much traction to have a lovely little business, and that's great. But that is an outcome of our business. The number one thing is be the go-to retirement platform, be known for doing the job really, 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 really well, and to be trusted. And if I can do those 3 things, then everything else will fall into place.
Paul, so if you could solve, let's say, one challenge a day, say simplifying pension, for example, what, in your opinion, what would it be and why?
These are all good questions. I have to think on this one, aren't they? So, if the problem, people talk about adequacy in pension savings. Okay, pension savings is super easy. There's only 4 things you do. One is join the scheme. The other one is put as much money in as you can do. Then keep an eye on charges and get above inflation returns. You do those 4 things, 99 times out of 100, you'll be fine. Automatic enrollment does 3 of those things really, really well. The one it doesn't do well is the contribution. And the problem we've got is people think I'm in an automatic enrollment scheme, therefore I'm okay. And they're not. It's starting. It's a starting place to get you into the savings habit, to understand the difference between gross and net, and you see a little statement. I know this I'll put my pensions priesthood hat on now, but I would double the amount of money that folk are putting into their pension schemes, and I would start them from age 0. As soon as they're born, I'd put 10 grand in to their own little separate pension pot that they can't touch for 30, 40 years. And within about 20, and double everyone else, and within 20, 30 years, we will be a completely self-sufficient society off the back of that.
What do you plan on getting that in front of people, or getting that installed into a lot of people to do? A lot of people are set in their ways on certain things, but it'll be interesting to know your point of view of how we would.
I'll give you a fact. Before automatic enrolment was introduced in the UK, even the most well-funded pension scheme had a participation rate of about 30%. So you could have 10% employer contribution, people didn't join it. The John Lewis scheme at the time, I think it's a DB scheme, non-contributory, 5% of the people still don't join it. It's nuts. Automatic enrolment says we're going to put you in. If you want to jump out, you can do, but if you're out after 3 years, we're going to stick you back in again. And we've got a partition. We've got over 90% of people in pension schemes. So unfortunately, whilst it's a really good thing to do to save for retirement, we have to use legislation to do it. And there's no getting away from it. And if you want to look at what good looks like, look at Singapore. Singapore has a cracking welfare benefit system based on compulsory worker contributions. It's a great model that we could copy, and we could solve a lot of other things, like how do we pay for universal health care and housing and things like that. So legislation is number one, but ringing in my ears is it's very easy to be right or wrong. It's very difficult to be effective, certainly in a 5-year parliamentary cycle. So how do you get long-term stuff signed off? Do what the former Prime Minister Tony Blair did, which is he took pensions planning out of the mainstream. He asked Lord Turner to look at it. He spent a few years doing it, looking around the globe, came up with automatic enrolment, came up with a basic state pension, then brought it back into the political mainstream, got cross-party support, and then took it through Parliament. So you have a really bright person outside thinking, understanding the problem, coming up with solutions, then bringing it back into a democratic policy to then get voted on them and be made law. I can't see how we're going to do any big changes in welfare or social care or pensions care with the way that you can put it straight into Parliament as a private member's bill, it'll be shot down in flames. So I would spend a couple of million quid getting that report done and then getting cross-party support to implement it through Parliament.
Nice, yeah. I feel that ties back into your dream outcome of becoming that trusted brand. I like the element of when you said honesty, because similar to us and Navvai, we like to be really transparent on a lot of things, and it seems like there's a few synergies. I wanted to ask, how do you think AI and retirement as a service will, evolve in the next 5 years?
Yeah, it's interesting actually. The FCA asked me a similar sort of question, and the easy answer is I've got no idea, because anyone who predicts what happens in 5 years' time, 5 years ago, when you predicted COVID, no, lockdowns, no. So, you got to, I suppose the lesson learned I would take there is think back to Google. So and think of healthcare. So on the one hand, people are Googling, oh, I just need to take some ibuprofen. Oh, I've got a sprained ankle. I need to elevate it and put some frozen peas on it. That's good. And then on the other hand, you've got people self-diagnosing, oh, I've got schizophrenia, right, I'm going to go onto the dark web and start medicating myself, and that's obviously undesirable. But in financial services, if we get the AI bit correct and we go up a few levels from it, I think what we have is very well informed people that are empowered to make good decisions. So really easy example. I know we do it in some ways, but when you look at your bank statement or online, you've got the bot telling you, will you pay off this bit of debt that's really expensive? And you could either pay it off with the money you've got in your current account, or there's an interest-free loan or an interest-free credit card balance over here. Move it around. Let's make the most efficient use of our money. That's something I would like to see. I don't want to see people doing DB transfers off the back of what an AI bot says, because that, there's too much nuance and grey area around that. So, and I think the key is having a good regulatory framework that acknowledges that. Being based on outcomes is a really good idea. What does good look like? What's the idea? What do we want to avoid? And then work back from there.
I see. So, Paul, you kind of spoken about obviously your predictions-ish in it, like, as well as obviously like your current state and what my time has been doing now and what you hope to achieve in the future.
Yep.
I wanted to ask, what has been your biggest kind of learning curve so far as a co-founder? Obviously, if you could share to our viewers, if they were to, I don't know, implement some sort of their own pension business, like, could you give them like any sort of advice?
I can't give advice. So
The
old financial advice that comes back on. The biggest, co-founding is a lonely job. Co-founding is a tough job. You do have to turn up every day and keep at it. If you've got a co-founder who you trust, who you know how they think, you've got complementary skill sets, you both got the same North Star where you want to be, makes all the difference. It really does. I've seen a lot of people struggle when they want to keep 100% of the equities, and they see like giving up 50% is a 50% loss. It really isn't. It means you're almost certainly going to get the 50% that's yours, because doing it all on your own is tough. So that's the first thing I say. Sorry, what's the second part of your question?
And if you were to give like anyone else in your industry, maybe they're doing some type of like pension orientated business, or even just a business in financial services as a whole, like if you could give them a piece of advice.
Yeah, two things: understand the problem you're solving and know where the market failure is. Two of the biggest lessons I learned at Nest. And I very quick story. I got ridiculed in a pub when I first joined Nest by all the big providers, saying, "Oh, you need to do this, you need to do that." And at Nest, we decided it was a software problem, it was a payroll problem, it was a compliance problem, it was never a pensions problem. 5 years later, there were 8 million people enrolled in automatic enrollment in different pension schemes. Nest picked up about 7 million of them. It was a huge percentage, because we understood the problem that we were solving and we knew where the market failure was. What I've noticed is there's lots of products out there doing the same as everything else. That's not innovation. That's just replication. If you want to do genuine innovation, leave your preconceived biases at the door. Tough, I know, but do that. Really understand the problem that you're solving with the people you want to solve it for, and really think about where there is market failure. We haven't gone for accumulation. We haven't gone for ISAs. We haven't gone for any of that stuff, because people can do that on their phone. There is no market failure there, but there's a massive market failure in how you take your savings out safely. And that's the bit that we concentrated on.
I have to say, Paul, this has been a brilliant conversation. And if they want to find you, where can they find you? What's your link?
Find me on LinkedIn. Yeah. Unfortunately, my name's Budgen, so I get called Budgie on the football field and things like that. And so when I was working, I was Budgie from Nest, so like this stuff just writes itself. But no, LinkedIn is the easiest thing. Contact details there. And genuinely, I'm a massive fan of mentoring, coffee chats, all of it. I've written articles on the role of mentoring, and this type of stuff, this format of chatting. If one person gets one idea from it that makes a difference, we've all done our job. If we get more folk doing that, then brilliant. So I don't want to be cheesy and say there's no such thing as a daft question, because there is such a thing as a daft question. But give it a go, and then let's see where we get to.
Brilliant, Paul. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining our podcast.
Thanks, Laz, for having me. Great questions, by the way. I'm exhausted.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you.